Welcome all to another class of Hunger Games history. Today, we will be talking about the 8th annual Hunger Games. This year, the capital was going through a major heatwave at the same time the Hunger Games were hosted, which greatly influenced the outcome of the event. The incident of the previous year, when Vibia from District 2 pretended to be dead as a strategy to win the games, had led to an upgrade in the number of cameras present in the arena. There were talks about implementing a better monitoring system in order to visualize the tribute's vitals, but due to the low funding of the Hunger Games at the time, it was not feasible to implement it just yet. Limitations aside, the game makers knew one thing for sure: they could not afford another mistake to happen, as the number of viewers had just reached a new low. However, this year proved to be riddled with a series of difficulties that ended up not doing the image of the games any favors. That summer, a severe heatwave was affecting the capital to the point in which citizens were advised to stay at home, sheltered from the sun. The workers of the Department of War pleaded to Dr. Gall to delay the games, but the head game maker was keen on letting them happen as scheduled. Preparations began, the reaping underwent in each district, and their tributes were taken to the capital, where they were placed inside the animal pen. It was at around that time that, despite Dr. Gall's insistence, a delay became inevitable when some of their equipment overheated and required last-minute maintenance. The delay lasted just one day, but just that one day made all the difference to the tributes, who were forced to wait for the start of the games inside the animal pen without water, whose old infrastructure did not provide much shelter from the sun either. Some of the older tributes attempted to fight for a resting spot under the shade, but the peacekeepers quickly reminded them, by cocking their guns, that fighting before the games was not allowed. Throughout the day, the condition of some of the tributes became critical. The young boys from District 6 and 7, both living in the northernmost area of their respective districts, were the first to pass away due to the weather conditions. Due to the climate in their districts, neither were used to such high temperatures, especially under direct sun and with no access to water. As the hours passed, more fell, with both tributes from District 3 following. Next was Zantia, the 12-year-old from District 11, who had been starving even since before the reaping. It was with her death that the capital started pondering whether or not to take action, worried that a smaller tribute sample could bring down viewership after 2 consecutive years where all 24 tributes made it to the arena alive. In order to control the situation, a veterinarian was assigned to collaborate with the Department of War and take care of the tributes for the time being. Those who looked the worst were given a very limited amount of water, just enough to make sure they would survive until the games. Due to the delay, this year the game started at a later hour, and only 19 tributes made it to the arena. Out of those, only few of the oldest showed some ability to still fight, as the strongest-looking tributes were given the most attention by the veterinarian, ensuring that there would be fighters that year. With the heatwave getting worse, and the sun shining brightly directly above the arena's open ceiling, some tributes were desperate to end the games before the environmental conditions could get to them. Thus, many ran straight to the weapon pile. Contrary to previous years, District 2, who was considered the strongest contender, were the first to be eliminated. Their male tribute had been one of the few monopolizing the shaded areas of the animal pen, angering others and making him and his district partner the main targets. The boy was killed by the District 5 male, while the girl died at the hands of the District 8 male, both being jumped on before having the chance to grab a weapon for themselves. Crispin and Janine, the District 4 pair, proved right at the beginning to be the tributes to look out for this year. They were both 18 years old, trained in spear fishing, and used to working under the strong sun. After grabbing a spear each from the weapon pile, they immediately used them to eliminate the tributes closest to them, Janine killing the boy from District 9, and Crispian killing the girl from District 10. Seeing their district partners murdered in cold blood, the remaining 2 fled as quickly as they could, giving up on taking anything from the pile. However, Crispian and Janine decided to flee as well, as the heat was getting too much to handle, even for them. The next moments were a complete disaster for the Department of War standards, With a strong recommendation for citizens to stay at home due to the weather, a rise in viewership was predicted and hoped for. However, with every minute, the numbers only went down and down. Tributes scattered each to their corners, desperate to stay under the few shaded areas the Colosseum provided. Even those who wanted to fight quickly realized that they were not in the physical condition for chases. Game makers debated if resorting to peacekeeper action should be considered, if it would do more harm than good for the numbers in the situation presented. Deciding against it, they kept waiting. No tribute moved until the sun started setting and the temperature decreased. The District 4 pair waited until dark to prepare a surprise attack on the District 5 and 8 tributes. Janine went after the District 8 tributes, managing to kill the boy, while Crispian had hit the girl from District 5. They were guided by the sound of their target's footsteps, allowing for an accurate spear attack. The girl's screams had alerted Ash, the boy from 5, who started swinging the sword aimlessly in hopes of finding the attacker, ending up successfully hitting Crispian and leaving him gravely hurt. The boy ended up passing shortly after. Janine could tell her district partner had been hit, and knew she had to avoid the same happening to her, no matter what. The District 8 girl had fled, but Ash, from 5, was still in the area. She began using the same strategy as him, stabbing the air with her spear in hopes of hitting him before he could hit her first. However, unlike Ash, wildly swinging his sword from one side to another, Janine paid attention with her ears, allowing for a more accurate attack, which led to the elimination of the District 5 tribute. Exhausted, Janine laid down. The tributes that had been staying by the bleachers noticed a sudden silence, assuming that the fights had come to an end. The District 1 couple, who were really struggling with their thirst due to their lower resistance, saw this as an opportunity to grab some weapons and made their way to the pile, but Janine was alerted by their footsteps. Despite her exhaustion, she was able to ambush them, getting up the moment the boy reached for the pile to grab a sword. Janine speared his back, not leaving him any time to act. His district partner, Diantha, ran away upon hearing the screams, still weaponless. Light came back, and so did the heat. Janine, from District 4, was still close to the weapon pile, having waited there in case another tribute made an attempt to arm themselves. However, no one seemed to have any will to fight, nor did they have the energy to do so. By then, it had been a good while since they received veterinary care, and now the weather felt even harsher. The sun was getting so strong it was impossible to bear, even for Janine, forced to move to the stands in search of shade. Other tributes displaced, as they saw her coming towards the area with her spear, but the girl was getting weak, as the effects of heatstroke started kicking in, especially after all the physical effort she exerted the hours before. Everyone quickly realized that no one there was attempting to start a fight. They all were already slowly dying. Despite her better start, after the long stalemate, it was Janine who eventually fell first, as her heatstroke symptoms progressed. She was followed by Diantha, from District 1, who never had to go this long without food or water before. Next was Marivonne, who surprisingly made it this far despite coming from one of the coldest areas of the north of District 9. At that point, only those who were more resistant to hunger and thirst, due to their living conditions in their districts, were still alive, though just barely. Most were tired, dizzy, and also feeling severe heatstroke symptoms, getting worse by the hour. One by one, they all eventually fell, until only Barry, from District 11, and Tameron, from District 12, were left. Two boys that throughout their whole life were used to working under harsh and precarious conditions. From opposite sides of the arena, the eyes of both tributes crossed. Tameron nodded before moving towards the weapon pile, expecting Barry to do the same so they could fight evenly. Instead, Barry turned the other way and stood in place, squinting his eyes from the harsh sunlight. Not a sound could be heard in the arena, other than a sudden loud thud. Tameron had passed out on the floor, on his way to the weapon pile, one more victim of severe heat stroke. Long minutes passed until Barry, from District 11, was finally announced as the last survivor. Barry chuckled upon hearing the announcement. He looked around the arena and then up, addressing the cameras with a series of insults against the government. He ended by claiming that to beat the Capitol in their own game, he did not need to make anyone bleed, which finally caused the transmission to be cut. Later that same day, District 11's Barry, victor of the 8th annual Hunger Games, received this punishment broadcasted live to all of Pan Am, a reminder to all districts to not defy the Capitol. Due to the living conditions in District 11, Barry showed a higher resistance to both hunger and thirst, as well as the harsh weather, which ultimately made him the last man standing despite not wielding a weapon or drawing any blood. Academy students, which other advantages, unrelated to weapons, do you believe each district could bring to the games, considering their industry and geography? Let us know your answers.